It's time for some late night investigative journalism about Call of Duty 2024 because there's just been a new leak which confirms some of the info we already knew, so I'll get you up to speed, and gives us some new info about exactly what Treyarch have planned. And that's one thing that I can just confirm right off the bat here is that Treyarch are indeed the lead developer for this title. But there's some crazy juicy stuff in here, so buckle up, drop a like on the video, we'll get into the details. So, what you need to know. As expected, this is not a surprise to us. The next Call of Duty is another entry in the Black Ops series. However, it's a little funky because people are referring to it as Black Ops 6. Reason being, we had Black Ops 4, we then had Black Ops Cold War, which was technically the 5th Black Ops game, and therefore this would be Black Ops 6, even if it's not actually called that, and it's called something like Black Ops Gulf War, which we'll get onto now. So, focused on the CIA, the next Black Ops is set in the Gulf War and will examine the United States' role in the conflict. This is especially interesting given that the most recent Modern Warfare 3 campaign didn't really provide any cultural, geopolitical commentary in the way that Call of Duty campaigns often do. I saw a viral tweet the other day that said something like, Treyarch campaigns are like criticizing the US government for their participation in massive global geopolitical crises and things along those lines. Infinity Ward is like Michael Bay, hell yeah, let's blow stuff up, and oorah, we love America. And Sledgehammer is like, what if hot people had guns? I don't know if you agree with that analysis, but it went viral. That wasn't my doing. Now, if you're not familiar with the Gulf War specifically, it's much more recent history than a lot of the historic Call of Duty games are used to. A lot of the historic stuff is World War I or World War II, or obviously the Cold War, whereas the Gulf War is early 90s. And as you can see on this next line, previous leaks point to a return of round-based zombie modes and remastered maps from previous Call of Duty Black Ops entries. Now, we'll talk about what those remastered maps are in this video. There are some other leaks that I've already made content on. You can click through to one of those videos right here. We talked about an island map. We talked about a sort of apocalyptic town as well. And we'll get into that more in this video too, but click that link if you want that specific leak. This one though goes on, Windows Central goes on to say, long in development, Treyarch is gearing up to show off its latest entry in the Black Ops series as most have been expecting for some time now, which is accurate. Via multiple sources familiar with Activision's plans, we can now confirm Call of Duty 2024 is indeed Black Ops, but we now have some more details on the theme. Black Ops 6 is currently being heavily referred to internally by code names. Makes total sense. I've heard from people that have been leaking things on Twitter that one of those code names is Garnet, but I don't know if that's accurate. Its formal name may not be fully decided yet. And I've got to say, Black Ops Gulf War and Black Ops Cold War, those sound so similar. Gulf War, Cold War, Gulf War, Cold War. I feel like that's going to be a real tongue twister as we go on. Like, people are going to have so many little slips of the mind where they're like, oh, I accidentally mentioned Cold War, meant to mention Gulf War. My bad, guys. So that's going to be a fun thing to navigate. Now, according to multiple sources, the game will sport the Black Ops moniker and once again follow some of the West's more shadowy military dealings in global conflict scenarios. For some background context, the Gulf War was the first major conflict between Saddam Hussein's Iraq and the coalition of US-led militaries. US President George Bush Sr., not Jr., Sr., and UK Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher deployed troops alongside Egypt and Saudi Arabia into Iraq after the Hussein regime invaded Kuwait in what formed the largest coalition of militaries since World War II. So that kind of gives you a feeling of the global superpowers that are going to be involved here and how this is going to harken back to previous Call of Duty campaigns that we've seen, such as, for example, if you take a look at the World at War campaign, they obviously have content in that game that's intended to be fully historically accurate, but it's focusing not just on like one American Marine, but actually you're jumping around a little bit to get different perspectives, and those are likely to be present in this game as well with the different factions, whether it's Egypt, Saudi Arabia, or it's the UK with Margaret Thatcher, or it's the US with George Bush Sr., all coming together to sort of play a part there. The Gulf War also charted a new era of heavily televised conflicts, with Operation Desert Storm becoming notorious for its live media coverage, and the war also featured some of America's largest ever tank battles in an era before drone warfare. Black Ops 6 is going to lean into more traditional military combat technology, so we're not expected to see the likes of the wall running and the exosuits and stuff like that, and it's going to have Black Ops gadgetry as opposed to the current and near future tech we've seen from Modern Warfare and some other recent Call of Duty titles. From what we've been told, Black Ops 6 will attempt to explore a nuanced narrative, that's always a good sign, of the Gulf War, with a critical focus on different participants within the conflict, exactly like I said about how they treated World at War, for example, and future games since then too. It will dovetail into the end of the Cold War era because the Gulf War period, early 90s, is the same as the culmination and end of the Cold War, early 90s. That's kind of when things wrapped up, the dissolution of the Soviet Union, etc. And it will explore some of the consequences therein, which should be really interesting. And for the zombies mode too, I imagine there's going to be plenty of stuff they can play with, especially due to the fact that we know the events of Black Ops Cold War and the zombie story that unfolded within, and we are learning the story of Modern Warfare 3 zombies and the story unfolding there, but that's obviously happening much later in the Modern Warfare 3 timeline. And so somewhere between those two, like in Black Ops Cold War, Weaver is alive and he's a very much active handler, whereas in Modern Warfare 3 Zombies, the guy's dead and he looks like he's been dead a while. So being able to be told that sort of story should be really interesting. That's going to be something to look forward to. While I can't fully corroborate this yet, it was previously shared on Twitter via Insider Gaming that Call of Duty 2024 will feature returning maps from the Black Ops franchise, including Grind and WMD. So classic maps there, not just your zombies maps being remastered and returning, but classic multiplayer maps as well. And game file leaks also point to round-based zombie modes returning, which, like I said, I talked about in that previous video. Insider Gaming has been reporting on this for a while, sharing the Cerberus codename, which I can now corroborate. So I guess the Garnet thing is maybe an internal code-specific codename. We're still locking down details on the format zombies will take for Call of Duty Black Ops 6 to see if we can corroborate some of those previous reports. We've also heard that Activision is discussing a large pre-order early access bonus for Call of Duty Black Ops 6 with several days for the base game and maybe even weeks for access to other modes. Oh my god. Are they going to make the zombies a pre-order bonus? Activision Blizzard has leaned heavily into the pre-order for early access trend recently, with World of Warcraft catching some backlash for the advantages it could impart via its pre-order early access for the War Within. Call of Duty Warzone will also naturally get some love to tie it into the new Black Ops entry, as you might expect. As usual, it's targeting a late fall, early winter 2024 launch. The idea of zombies potentially being available weeks early for pre-orders is terrifying to me, because I think that pre-order bonuses in that form are inherently actually toxic for the best interests of players. I, for example, would like to raise the hypothetical scenario to you that you pre-order a game like Black Ops 4, the Zombies launches early, the Zombies is in a bit of a shambles and it doesn't really work and it constantly crashes your console and things like that, but because you've pre-ordered and accessed the pre-order that you've bought there and you've jumped into the game to try it out, you can no longer refund your pre-order, you can no longer make a decision based on reviews, you have to make a decision based on just sort of the hype cycle and the marketing, and it's a really dangerous place to be, but obviously you don't want to miss out on the early access content, you don't want to be left behind with everyone else solving all the Easter eggs. So you're put in a real awkward catch-22 scenario, and I don't blame anyone that pre-orders stuff in the industry. I think that that's totally fine, that's totally valid. But at the same time, I think it does set up consumers for greater risk to make lesser informed decisions and for their purchases to potentially be something that they wish they could take back more frequently. So I really strongly do not like the idea of zombies being a pre-order for early access mode. If they dangle round-based zombies on the end of a pre-order stick, that's going to feel really icky to me, and I'm not a fan. So I would encourage us all to push back on the idea of it being a pre-order for early access mode. They say that Black Ops 6 will be launching in the shadow of Modern Warfare 3, which has become notorious for the quality or lack thereof of its campaign mode. Bloomberg has suggested that this year's Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 was developed in the space of a few months as Treyarch sought delays for its own Call of Duty title. I didn't know that. Oh my god. Treyarch contributes to all Call of Duty projects, but Call of Duty 2024 will represent the longest development time Treyarch has ever put into a title it's leading. Oh my god. As such, some of the expectations will probably be higher than usual. Damn right they will be. But despite all the backlash, it may not matter because Modern Warfare 3 still broke engagement records for Activision despite the negative feedback, and that's something that I covered in my other video that I already posted on my channel today, which is linked above if you want to go and click through to that. Overall, that's a lot of news about zombies. If you want more info on the round-based, I've got a link right on screen that you can click right now, and that'll tell you about that island map that I mentioned and also about that apocalyptic town. For now, though, if you want to stay up to date on this story as it develops, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.